Hello, hello. We're going to give it a couple minutes, let everyone get on, and then we'll get started. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Hello. Thank you. I like it too. I will admit though, I did not change my needle before doing this when I made the example and I broke my needle. So that is lesson learned. Change your needle. I'll mention that later too. But yeah, we'll give it another minute or so. It's been 2 minutes since I started the live. Another minute, let those get on, and then we'll get started. So if you are on here, make sure you pop a hello or something in the comments. I'd like to see who all joins in. Now I know for this one there is some sewing, of course. There's sewing involved. So this is a good live to be on if you're busy doing some things in the sewing area, or you know, can check in on what we're doing here and there, because I do have to do some sewing. So there will be a couple times where I'll be a little silent. But, so I'm going to get started. If you are new to coming to these Facebook Lives, my name is Julia Schwery. I am one of the educational designers on the fabric side. And as you can see, I have two screens. The one I'm talking to right now is my computer, which will eventually face my sewing machine when I'm sewing, but a lot of the work I do is over at my other camera, which is my phone, over where I have my iron and everything else. So I'll be back and forth. I usually have a moderator. She comes in and she will help answer any questions you have. And I will also check the chat every so often when I come back over to my computer to see if there's anything I need to address. But with that, I'm going to go over to the other station. I'm going to actually first minimize this screen so you can see more of the workstation. We're going to make it a little smaller, and I will get started over there. Alrighty, get my iron warming up. So tonight, as you can see from the images on the invite for this, we are making a boxy pouch. And the kicker here is I'm actually using some things from the dollar store. So let me go ahead and get you started. What you will need for this is you will need HeatnBond Lite. You can also use Feather Light, which is in like a light purplish blue periwinkle packaging. You can also, if you don't want to do the sewing, which I'm going to do the sewing tonight. If you don't want to sew, you can use the Ultra Hold, and you don't have to then do the sewing. But I suggest not using this because you still have to sew the seams, and then you would have to cut your adhesive a little bit smaller so that it wouldn't end up your needle. So my biggest suggestion is that this is definitely a sewing project. So, all right. You will also need, and all the supplies are listed on the blog, and I have that link in the description. You will need your lining fabric, and this is 9 by 12 inches. And you will need the outside fabric, same size, 9 by 12, and there are two of them, two of these as well. I am using a zipper that I cut to 9 inches, approximately 9 inches. This is the zipper by the yard, and then I added the little zipper pulls. So about 9.5 inches. If you're using zippers that are not on by the yard, I would say I'd go with like a 10 to 12 inch zipper, because you do lose a lot with those ends. A 9-inch zipper really only gives you about 7 inches of space. So I just want to point that out for those who see 9.5 inch, 9-inch zipper. It's actually a little bit longer if you're using the pre-cut zippers that have that little spot at the end, beginning and end. You will need something for a tab. I am using double wide elastic. Just happens to be what I have. You can also make your own tabs. This is approximately 3¼ inches, give or take. And the biggest thing is, well, what am I using from the dollar store? So they do sell fabric at the dollar store now, but I just wanted to use what I had at home. So I'm using what I had on hand, but what we're using is what we're using in the middle, and I am using one of the dollar store's drying mats. This is going to be kind of the middle of our quilted piece. So let's get started. So what we need to do first is we got to cut this in half. So the one I am using is an 18 by 12. So when we cut it in half, it gives us that 9 by 12, which is the size that we cut for our lining and our outer pieces. So I'm just going to cut it straight down the fold here. You can use rotary cutter if you'd like, if you want to be a little more exact. And then I'm going to show you too, what's really neat is, unless you cut one of these open, you're like, what is it made of in the inside? It's essentially like a foam. So this really gives the box stability. You can't really feel it from the screen, but this thing is sturdy. It's not flimsy at all. All right, so we have now cut it in half. I'm actually just gonna cut this tag off. Don't need that. And what we need to do first is we need to add our outer fabric. I mean, the black is nice and all, but I like things really pretty with the fabric that I pick out. That's why I pick it out. It's very pretty. So to do that, we are going to use our HeatnBond Lite. And I have already cut mine down, and they, again, have been cut to that 9 by 12 size. Now, depending on, of course, the mat. So the mat should be 9 by 12. But of course, it's just an estimate on that when you get it from the store. And as you can see, mine is just slightly smaller. So really make sure you just measure your own thing. I am going to trim this down because I don't want to get this sticky stuff, the sticky adhesive on my wool pressing mat. Looking for my scissors. And it doesn't have to be exact. We're going to be stitching this in. And then, of course, then these edges are all going to be in the seams. I'm going to measure this one next. And I am adhering the HeatnBond Lite to my mat first, because it's so thick. I don't want to add that extra layer of fabric yet. I want it to adhere to this. So I've got my iron, turn that down a little bit. We're just going to press this to our drying mat. And actually, I didn't show you what it looked like. I'm not sure you can see it in the camera, but you can see it's like a foam in between there. It's really nice. I guess it is meant to absorb your dishwater when you are drying dishes. Okay. All right, set that one aside, and I'm going to do this one next. around it one more time. All right. So while this one cools, this one is now cool. So we can peel this paper off. And we're going to adhere our front fabric to it. But before I do that, I'm going to give it a little press. I thought I'd add to my other one is ice cream and donut trucks. So this one is dogs with gelato and swimming in the pool. It was just a little fun fabric I had. All right, so we're going to peel this paper backing. You can see the shininess of the adhesive. And my fabric is slightly bigger, which is fine because that way I know that I'm not going to get that adhesive on my iron, and it's all going to be in the seams anyway. So we'll press to adhere our fabric. So I mentioned, for those who were on at the very beginning, I did mention, so when I first made this, I was absent-minded. And of course, just like anybody who sews, you just don't remember maybe how long your needle's been in there. And I definitely broke a needle. So I changed it, and hopefully that won't happen tonight. Gotta be careful when you go over those zippers. Even a sharp needle can get broken too. So, but I'll talk you through that if this is your first time sewing with a zipper. I will talk you through how to try to prevent that. Okay. It's still not attached, so we're gonna put a little bit extra pressure up here. I do have it, turn up to medium high. Don't want to turn up too high because I don't want it to come through the fabric, but it is a little bit thicker. All right, there's one. And now we have to do the other one. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go over and check the chat. This is where I have to do a little bit of sewing, and it'll take me, maybe 5 minutes. I'm hoping not too long. I'm going to quilt this just so it has a really nice look. And because I use the HeatnBond Lite, I do have to sew it. And if I don't sew it in the center, it eventually might split. So that's why this is the HeatnBond Lite, and you have to sew it. So I'm going to go start quilting that and check the chat. And then we'll go from there. wasn't prepared. I'm gonna check the chat and fill my bobbin. It's about out, and before I run out, I better fill it. I don't want to play that game. Looks like more was on there than I thought. All right. Okay. So I have them sewn, and because they were dogs and swimming pools, I did a cute little wavy stitch. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to do some trimming. We're gonna trim out the corners. So we're gonna do that with both our lining and our outside. And this fabric, I have to remember, this fabric is actually directional. So I got to keep that in mind. And it doesn't matter with the cutting right now, but I'm just saying when I attach my zipper, I need to make sure that I keep in mind. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be cutting out 2-inch squares from the top and the bottom. The size of your corner cuts is what gives you the dimensions of your box. You could go smaller, which would make it a longer and maybe a taller box. If you go bigger, it makes it a lot squattier. So I chose 2 inches to make this size. So we are going to cut them out. And since this is a lot thicker, I'm going to do one at a time, but my lining I will cut all at one time. You can also measure and cut with scissors if you'd like. There is more than one way to do things. With any project. And I'm cutting on a cutting board on a wool pressing mat. So it's a little bit spongier than when I'm cutting on my table. And that one got it. All right, there's that one. And then we will cut our lining as well. 2 inches from each corner. All right. Now we can start adding the zipper. So to do that, we need to start with one lining piece and one front piece. And this is directional. I want to make sure that I am putting my zipper at the top down here and not down here, so my dogs are not upside down. All right, for the zipper, we are going to have our front facing up. We will then flip our zipper facing down. And then our lining will be wrong side facing up towards us, or correct, right side to right side. I am using a batik fabric, and a batik is very similar to a solid where the front and back really don't matter. So if you are using a fabric that has a right and a wrong side, you put your right sides together. And as you can see, my zipper is longer, which is what you want. You want to be able to trim that off. So I'm going to first pin or clip. With zippers, I really like to clip them. I'm going to clip that on, and then I will then clip this in place. And I am lining up just kind of centered. So this piece is slightly bigger. I think when you quilt it, the quilted piece just shrinks up just a little bit, but since it's the lining, it's actually not really getting sewn to this like this, so it doesn't have to line up exactly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take over my machine, and with a zipper foot, I'm going to stitch this down. So I will be back. So I have that sewn. I'll get my iron turned back on, because now we're going to press this up, and we're going to press this up so that we can then do a top stitch. So you're going to And like I said, you can see my lining does not line up with my front piece, but that's okay because that's going to be stuffed down inside, and it's only getting sewn together at like 2 different spots. So just so that you don't get scared that your lining piece is too big. All right, so I have this pressed. What I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go top stitch this, and that will hold this in place. All right. Oh, don't want to lose it. If the zipper falls off, you can easily put it back on. So, all right, I've got that top stitched. It lays nice and flat now. I'm going to repeat the same process that I just did with my other 2 pieces. Let's make sure that I am correct. So with the correct sides facing up. So, but now at this point, you do need to line up your front pieces. Okay, so this is going to kind of come down a little bit, and I'm lining up this side and this side when I place my clip on the zipper. And this side should line up, and it does. I could potentially use a 3rd clip. I just don't have one in reach, so we're going to put a little pin there. Okay. And now we will, again, it would be right side to right side of our lining so that when this flips out, it will flip out and be the correct direction. The lining, of course, then you also want to then line up with your lining. So I'm lining it up along this line here, and it's automatically lining up there for me, and now it is lining up over here. Find that pin I stuck in there. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to the machine, stitch with the zipper foot down here, and then I'll be over to press it so that we can top stitch it. I almost end up pulling the zipper off. So you might be able to see in the camera, like when I get to the certain point in stitching and I'm going to get really close to my zipper pull, I'll stop stitching and I'll move it out of the way, and I almost made it go off, which, like I said, not a big deal, but not something I want to put the zipper pull back on. So we're going to press this down. So I'm just kind of folding that seam down, pressing it, and then we'll top stitch it. Okay. All right, back over to the sewing machine again. I'm going to top stitch this down. And as you can see, we've got two separate things. These you want to line up, and these you want to line up. All right, so at this point, let me lay these out. We are going to be stitching our sides together. Before we do that though, we do want to open this up pretty far because you want to be able to turn it right side out, and if you don't have this open, it can be challenging. But there is a step that I add because my zipper is by the yard, and I would probably still do this with a regular zipper that comes as a complete set, is we are going to stitch this closed with just a simple basting stitch. I left the pin on the ground. I don't want to step on it. I'm looking for it. Oh well, I'll find it later. So I'm going to take just some thread and my needle and just create a basting stitch, which basting just means, usually just means temporary, or it's just kind of holding it there before you do the final stitching. So I'm just going to wrap it around a few times. And that is so that when I get ready to sew my sides, like at the very end, this doesn't come apart and then I have this huge gap. So this will just take off with a pair of scissors or like some seam ripper. I just go around a couple times and I'll tie just one little knot. And it just holds it together. Because over here, it's being held together because the zipper is together. Do one more knot. Okay. So now what we need to do is we're going to put our linings together and our front together. And I'm going to grab some pins. I lost my donut, so now we have a cake. I'm going to pin the pieces. The foam side's a little bit trickier to pin. It is a lot thicker, although one or two pins is all you need because of the stiffness. It does just kind of hold in place. It doesn't shift all over the place. And then you'll want to pin your lining together. And I'm putting 2 pins on the bottom. And I'm doing that because that's going to be my guide, because I need to leave a hole. And you'll want to leave a big enough hole because the thickness of this, you want to be able to pull it through without pulling out too many of your stitches. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the machine. I'm going to sew two different things. I'm going to sew from here to here and here to here, and I'm going to sew across the entire bottom. If we didn't cut these out, I'd say we'd sew around like this, and then you would cut them out separately. Like I said, there's more than one way to make something. I just cut everything out at the beginning versus some at the beginning, some at the end. So I just wanted to cut everything out at one time. So we are just going to sew right here, here, and here across the entire thing. Make sure you back stitch at each end. And then over here, we are going to sew from here to here, here to here, and then we're going to sew teeny tiny bits and really stitch those up, really back stitch right there where those pins are, so that when we get ready to pull this through the lining, and if you've never made one of these, you'll see what I'm talking about later, because we're going to leave this open. You want to leave this hole open. So I'll be back. And for this, I didn't say the seam allowance. I am going to do a 3/8 inch. And on my machine, it just means that my needle is in the very center and I'm using my foot as a guide. Now with my machine, I know that that is 3/8 of an inch. You know, everybody's machine is different. So you can do a 1/4 of an inch if you'd like as well. I'm just going to use 3/8 of an inch. That way I know everything is in the seams. And I forgot something, which is fine because I didn't get all the way done. I totally forgot about our tab. Your tab you'll want to put between your front layers, facing inside, about here, and then pin it down. You don't need a tab. Tab's not necessary. Just kind of adds a little extra fun. Gives you a spot if you want to put a keychain, you can. All right, so we're still going to be working with it inside out here. What we need to do is we need to close off our outer corners. So to do that, you simply, this is what gives it that boxy look. You pull that opening to where your two seams meet, and I like to kind of put them together like that. And I lost my clips. Let me grab some. Clips are really handy with this. All right, so you see that we're gonna line them up like that. And we're gonna do it to all 4 corners. You'll pull it together. And since this one I have going this way, I'm gonna make sure that I'm doing the same so that it'll lay the same direction. And I'll do the same thing to my lining. You'll pull those corners. It's called nesting. I was trying to think of the word nest your seams. You're gonna nest those seams together. This is a lot thinner, so a pin works just fine. It's going that direction. And again, when I sew these, I'm going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. That guarantees, I know, I mean, it was cut really well, so actually it lines up really beautifully. Sometimes, depending on your stitching, it might be slightly off, but if you have a big enough seam allowance, it will get everything in it. But this one actually looks really good. Everything kind of lines up perfectly. So down here you can see that little bit kind of sticks up, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to stitch from here to here, here to here, and the same on the bottom. And we're getting close to being done. So this is good. This is exciting. And usually with these, I'll double stitch. So I'll go down once and then I'll start again because, I mean, this is the outside of the box. This is this big old seam right here and here. And I do the same with the top too. Found my clips. All right. This is what it looks like now. So you can see where this is actually going to be the bottom of my box. I can kind of give it a little finger press and make that nice boxy shape. But what we got to do now is we've got to fill these holes in. This is where it's very important to sew very slowly and take your time so you don't break a needle. So what we need to do is we need to do the same thing we did to the bottoms, is we need to kind of pull this like this, but we have to do it with the lining as well. Like I said, the lining isn't sewn to anything except for right here. So we are going to pull both, and it's off a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to pull that up, and we're gonna use these clips. This is where our larger seam allowance comes into play. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pin the other side too, is I really think I'm going to sew on the purple side, because you can also sew on the black side, but looking at the way that my fabric has ended up, because you could cut everything perfectly and it can still end up a little wonky when you're sewing it. This is the side I want to make sure, since this is a little wonkier, that this gets caught in the seam, and then I'll probably flip it over and sew this side to make sure I have both. Now I'm going to do it to the other side as well. And this is where having those stitches right there is going to come into play. I probably could have made them a little further down in hindsight. See those stitches there? I probably should have made them closer to here, but we are at this point now. And it looks like it might lay flat for me pretty well. I'm going to put my clip in just to kind of hold it in place for a second, and then I'm going to pull my lining flat. There we go. And if you've never done this type of pouch before, I really highly suggest that maybe you try it with like a fusible fleece first. So ThermOWeb makes fusible fleece, in using that instead of the dollar store mat. And then once you've got that down, because this is a lot thicker, and if you're not used to manipulating fabric, doing something that's a little bit thinner and gives you a little bit more push and shove, that is an option too. It would make the same kind of pouch. It just might not be as stiff because of the foam, but I've made plenty of pouches like that as well. All right, so I'm going to go over to my machine and making sure that this stays nice and flat when I stitch it. And I'm going to sew back and forth probably twice, once on this side, and then I'll flip it over and stitch it once on this side. As you can see, it's slightly off center there, so I want to make sure I catch that in the seam. Doing a 3/8 inch seam allowance again, and going very slow, and you might even need to hand crank your sewing machine when you get to that needle, because you don't want to be sewing and then all of a sudden that needle goes straight down onto the metal part of the zipper, and then you've got a broken needle, and it kind of scares you and freaks you out for a minute. A lot of times it doesn't even break right away. It starts to shake, and then you're like, oh, my machine. So if you're scared, hand crank it, because if you hand crank it and it hits that metal, it won't go any further, and you're like, okay, so maybe I need to just push the fabric just slightly to get it to go in between those grooves. And I don't know how else to kind of share with you tonight, because I don't have a camera set up directly on that. I might be able to do a separate tutorial and put that on my blog. Just go nice and slow. goodness. It says my battery on my computer is running low. And I do not have my charger up here, so I'm going to try to get through this before it runs out. It was at 100% when I started. Just to be safe, I'm going to go holler at my husband to bring my charger. Don't want to lose it. Sean, can you bring me my computer charger? It's downstairs. Will you bring it up? Thank you. Husband to the rescue. Because my laptop's very old, so I guarantee that it's at like 12% that in 2 minutes it's gonna like die on me. Don't want that to happen, so. Thank you.
This is one that's actually just been sitting in the bottom of my... so you can keep it.
Well, thank you very much.
See what's in there. Love you.
Love you too. Okay.
Are you done?
No, I'm not done.
Oh, you're supposed to
Say hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm that good husband that brings you the charger. Love you.
All right. We're so close. All right, this is the scary side. The other side has a little more give with the zipper. And it went over it, yay! I'm going to do it one more time. Make sure I catch everything, which I turned it over and I did catch it. But I do want to go over, you know, that zipper area has a lot of stress to it. So any area that has a lot of stress, it's good to add a little bit of extra stitching. Okay. We have it right here. We're going to now trim the excess zipper off. We don't need that. It's a little bit on both sides. And now is the big reveal. We have to, I'm actually going to kind of do a finger press while it's inside out. We're going to press it with the iron too to give it the nice boxy look. But sometimes. All right, so now we're going to pull this. That's why you leave a hole in the middle of your lining, because you're going to take and pull it through it. Kind of goes inside out to right side out. And you really want that hole big enough because the foam from the drying mat is very stiff. And there we go. Then you can stick your hand down in there and kind of push it out. Got to push out all 8 corners because our box has 8 corners. 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And now, we've got that piece of thread right there. We can also kind of snip and pull out. But we still have one more bit of sewing to do before we give it a little press. We need to stitch our lining closed. So we're going to pull that out from inside the boxy pouch. And kind of push the corners out as well. We'll eventually push those corners back in the opposite direction. But when we get ready to sew this, we need to push them out so that we can, it's already got the fold there because of the sewing we did on either side. And I just kind of go with it. And you can press it if you'd like. I usually just take it over the machine and just stitch it. But press it. I'm going to take it over and I'm going to stitch from here to here and close it up. Now for closing this seam, I am using 1/4 of an inch. Our lining is now completely sealed. Then you can stuff it in and push those corners out on the bottom. Got your zipper. Now this is where I like to also, because of the foam, sometimes you do need to give it a little press to get those nice crisp edges. You can manipulate it until you get it to what you want. And there it is. We got another boxy pouch to go with our other boxy pouch. My zipper pull is on this side for this one. It's on this side. Really, it's just a preference of what you want. Either it helps you open or it helps you close. So this one it holds so I can open it. This one I hold it so I can close. And there they are. I'm going to go over to the chat, check it out, and I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'm glad I didn't break any zippers. This zipper actually went on a lot better than this one, as you can see, because this one I forgot to do the stitching. So if you forget to do the stitching, actually this is a good point, I forgot to do the stitching. So when I was stitching over here, it ended up overlapping itself, and you can see how it's like kind of going down in there versus if you look at the one where I did the hand stitching, how much neater and straighter that is. So it can make a difference. All right. I'm just looking through all of the chat. All right, we have our winner, Megan. Congratulations. if you, I'll keep this chat open for a minute before I end the live. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. I'm going to make my camera a little bigger. I will be uploading the live video to Facebook sometime in the next 24 hours or so. So if you need to rewatch it for any information, it will be on ThermOWeb's YouTube channel. I believe you can also watch it on here, but a lot of times with the feed it can get lost. So you can just find it over on their YouTube channel, along with all the other Facebook Lives that I have done. So yeah, thank you all again for joining us tonight. And my computer didn't die thanks to my hubby. And thank you all again. Have a great week. See you next time.